Xavier, Sonny, Layla, and Hal stood in front of the door to their living quarters. They could not believe what they just saw. Taro stood next to them with a smug face. See? I told you it's wild. Xavier swallowed. His head suddenly felt dizzy. What he and the others saw was an insane amount of people walking down the road. The entire road was crowded. Are they all headed to the north? Taro nodded. Looks like it. I approached them and overheard some of their conversations. They all were talking about you and Zin. They also made a lot of bets. It's going to be really exciting. As Xavier stood there, the students who recognized him cheered from the main road. Others booed. It appeared that there were many mixed emotions. Xavier could not help but laugh. Oh man, I didn't expect that so many people are going to show up for the alchemy competition. How did they all hear about it? We agreed on the competition yesterday, and now the entire inner circle knows about it. That's unbelievable. I'm not surprised. I don't think many of these students have ever seen an alchemy competition before. It's a nice change to see alchemists competing against each other by refining pills instead of beating each other up, Layla said, and crossed her arms in front of her chest, while watching the people head to the arena. Hao, next to her, shook his head. I would prefer it if Xavier would beat Zin up, to be honest, but to each their own. Maybe I can beat him up for you at some point, Xavier. Don't bother. If I want to beat him up later, I'll do it myself. Hopefully it won't come to this. I really want to win the competition, and then never deal with Zin and his doctors again. Xavier sighed as he thought about all the things he had to deal with these days. There was the disappearance of his father, creating a body for Lao, getting the fallen heart heavenly flame, and also bringing the Ice Emperor the promised purple recovery pill. Xavier felt bad for letting the Ice Emperor wait for so long, but getting the heavenly flames and finding his father was Xavier's priority right now. Xavier and the others decided to head to the northern arena along with the crowd. They did not want to be too late. Whenever Xavier was recognized, people chanted his name. Xavier was not sure how to feel about this. He hurried up his pace so that he could reach the arena as quickly as possible. The northern arena was close to the living quarters, so it did not take too long to arrive. By the time Xavier and his group reached it, the arena was full of people. I've never seen this arena so crowded. I was stunned. He had fought in all the big arenas in the inner circle, namely the northern, eastern, western, and southern arenas, and usually the northern arena was the one that was the least busy. Right now, however, it was so crowded that it looked as if the entire inner circle was present. Even the elders got curious and showed up. Since an alchemy competition was very rare, they did not want to miss it. They also wanted to see if Xavier was really as powerful as the first elder said. This alchemy competition was a perfect opportunity to see Xavier's skills in action. Once everyone arrived, the sun was burning down on the arena. The people were sweating in the heat, but they did not care. Happily, they kept chatting with each other, taking bets on how this competition was going to end. It was a lot louder than usual. Even the elders were surprised to see how full the arena was. The chatting was interrupted as a loud gong echoed through the arena. This was the sign that the competition was about to start. An old, hunched-over man walked into the middle of the arena. Xavier recognized him. It was Elder Lee, whom he had met yesterday. Once Elder Lee stopped in the middle of the arena and cleared his throat. Even the last whispering and murmuring stopped. He raised his hands. I am not going to waste everyone's time by talking too much. I know very well what everyone is here for. Let's welcome our alchemists, Zin and Xavier. Elder Lee must have used his Q energy to make his voice sound louder. As if he used a microphone, his voice echoed over the arena. Even the people who were in the seats that were the furthest away from the middle heard every word the elder said, crisp and clear. Zin reacted immediately. He jumped high into the air and landed in a dramatic pose in front of Elder Lee. The audience went crazy. Many of them knew Zin, since Zin was a level 4 alchemist. He enjoyed a high reputation in the inner circle. He proudly raised his chest. The badge on it with the 4 silver waves reflected in the sunlight. A smirk was on his face. Not long after, Xavier strolled through the crowd and walked into the middle of the arena. People were surprised to see him casually strolling through the arena, but Xavier did not care. He was not in a hurry and did not feel the need to show off. As Xavier reached the middle of the arena, he faced Zin and took a respectful bow. Zin did the same. Elder Lee stood between them. His sharp eyes watched every move the contestants made. I always had great respect for alchemists. Unfortunately, I lacked the requirements to become one, so I decided to learn about alchemy and alchemy formulas as an outsider. Alchemy has always fascinated me. Regardless, I am honored to be the judge for these two promising young alchemists today. To make sure that the competition is fair, I have picked a formula from the collection of formulas at the inner circle. I have to admit, I picked a formula that I know will be challenging. I have been talking about this with a few members of the alchemy department. They told me it would not be easy for Xavier and Zin to refine this formula, but it should be possible. If they think they lack the ability to refine this pill, they still have the chance to withdraw from the competition. Are the two of you willing to be challenged? Upon hearing this, both Zin and Xavier felt how their bodies got tense. They did not expect that this old man would push them so hard. Zin did not hesitate with his answer. I love a challenge. I'm ready. The audience got more and more excited. The excitement was felt in the air like electricity. Xavier smirked. I'm ready too. Very good. Very good. I am happy to hear this. And I am sure the audience is as well. This is going to be a fantastic show. Now, the alchemy department allowed me to gift both of you this formula. It is a small thank you for demonstrating your alchemy abilities for the whole inner circle to see. This is a rare event, and I am sure we can all learn a lot about alchemists and their talents when watching you perform your work. Who wishes to read the formula first? Xavier and Zin looked at each other for a moment. They both knew why this could be a crucial factor. After all, a formula was not written down with any ordinary ink. A formula was created by using spiritual strength. Each time an alchemist would read a formula, some of the spiritual strength of the formula was absorbed by the alchemist. This meant that after reading a formula many times, it would become harder and harder to read, until eventually, all the writing and knowledge of the formula was gone completely, making it unreadable. Xavier smiled and said, I will gladly let Zin read the formula first. He is my senior after all. Xavier grew familiar with the customs of this world. Although he did not like Zin, he knew that he had to remain respectful. Xavier also knew that someone who was older was automatically more respected than someone younger. Therefore, he made the polite decision to let Zin read the formula first. Zin did not reject this offer. Thank you, Xavier. He smiled and received the scroll from Elder Lee. Carefully, Zin opened the formula. The material with which the formula was made was withered and yellowed. It must have been a very old formula. Zin let his eyes wander over the formula. He used his spiritual strength to absorb the knowledge of the scroll. The faint smile on his lips gradually disappeared. An ugly expression was on his face once he was done. Into whispering. Something is wrong with this formula, I can tell. A handful of alchemists from the doctors came to watch the spectacle. They wanted to see their leader. Immediately, the arena broke into whispering. Something is wrong with this formula, I can tell. A handful of alchemists from the doctors came to watch the spectacle. They wanted to see their leader defeating Xavier. As they saw Zin's expression, they could tell something was wrong. They spent a lot of time with him, and therefore, knew him well enough to see what was going on based on his reactions. As the students nearby heard this, they also began to whisper. Did you hear that? The alchemist said there must be something wrong with the formula. What could this mean? I have no idea. How could a formula be wrong? Did they forget to list some ingredients? The murmuring and whispering grew louder and louder. Xavier could not make sense of what was going on. Is this formula really so advanced, or is there something else that is off? The elder Lee had a mischievous smile on his lips. I do know that it might be a bit hard, but young people need to be challenged, and we are here to have a competition, not to play. A bitter taste spread through Xavier's mouth as he received the scroll from Zin. He surged his spiritual strength and observed the formula. Zin's ugly expression turned into a smug smile. Silently, he thought that if he was so lost when looking at this formula, surely Xavier would feel even worse. Zin kept his eyes fixated on Xavier without blinking. He wanted to see the moment in which Xavier would realize that this was hopeless. Much to Zin's unhappiness, this moment did not come. Xavier kept reading the scroll with an indifferent expression. Sunny, Layla, and Hao, who kept watching from the best seats, looked relieved. Xavier does not seem too worried. Maybe it's not that bad. Zin gritted his teeth. He thought that Xavier only kept his indifferent expression to upset him. Zin was sure that there was nothing to it. He was convinced that Xavier must have been as nervous as he was. Xavier kept reading and absorbing the flood of information on the formula. A lot of knowledge flooded into his brain, thanks to the spiritual energy that was stored in the formula. The formula is for a level 5 pill. It is called the Dragon Strength Pill. It is a pill that increases your strength for a short period of time. However, this does not mean it increases your Q energy or your level. It only increases your raw physical strength. While the effects only last for a short period of time, they're incredibly powerful. Since it's a pill that has a physical effect, rather than one that affects someone's Q energy, it is a bit more difficult to refine than an ordinary level 5 pill. Xavier rubbed the bridge of his nose. His head was pulsating. Man, this is really a complex formula. Elder Lee really wants to make things difficult for us. Even an ordinary level 5 alchemist would struggle with this pill. Zin felt the same. He turned to Elder Lee. Elder Lee, how are we supposed to refine a level 5 pill? The audience was shocked as they heard the words level 5 pill. The murmuring got louder. Elder Lee raised his hand to make them calm down. I thought the two of you wanted a challenge. Yes, it will be difficult. According to the alchemists I've talked to, between 70 to 80% of all level 5 pills will fail during the refining process. You only have a 30% chance of success, if you are lucky. Xavier was speechless. This sounded insane. Even the elders who were watching were at a loss for words. I thought they only asked him to be the judge to ensure that everything is fair. Yet somehow, Elder Lee acts as if he wants to make this competition impossible for these two young alchemists. Elder Lee waved both his hands, and a gust of wind came out of nowhere. Moments later, 2 stone tables appeared close to him. Elder Lee must have concealed them with his Q energy up until now. On the 2 stone tables were a handful of ingredients, the exact same amount of the same ingredients on each one. We have prepared 3 sets of ingredients for you. This way, each of you will have 3 chances to successfully refine the Dragon Strength Pill. This level 5 pill has the ability to raise someone's physical strength for a while. Many eyes widened as Elder Lee explained the effect of this pill. The whispering in the audience got louder again. Hao was amongst the students who were the most excited. Secretly, he wondered if he could ask Xavier to refine such a pill for him later. Raising someone's physical strength was not something many pills could do. The Dragon Strength Pill must have been very rare. Even the students who did not know anything about alchemy could tell this much. Zin did not look happy. Elder Lee, what if we both fail? Don't tell me we can end this competition in a draw. Elder Lee shook his head. Although I am not an alchemist, I have read a lot about alchemy and talked with many alchemists. If both of you fail, then we will still have the residue of the failed pill. Based on this residue, we can see who is the stronger alchemist. All right, that sounds good, Zin said, but his unhappy expression stayed the same. He did not think that he could create this level 5 pill. All he hoped for was that Xavier would also fail this test. He threw an annoyed glance at Xavier, cursing him silently. Zin took a deep breath and walked to one of the stone tables. Xavier did the same. The audience turned deadly silent as they noticed that the alchemists were about to start. Elder Lee raised his hand. Since the alchemists are prepared, let us begin. The gong echoed through the arena again, announcing the start of the competition. Xavier's eyes swept over the bundled ingredients. He counted all of them. They were all the ingredients that were listed in the formula. Nothing seemed to be missing. Xavier brushed over his storage ring, and his cauldron appeared. Since Xavier spent day after day refining pills, the cauldron had a few marks, scratches, and dents. Zin, who kept glancing at Xavier to see what he was doing, did not hold back his laughter. Seriously? Do you want to use this low-quality cauldron to refine a level 5 pill? Man, I really overestimated you. If I had known you show up with this old stove, I would not have worried so much about this competition. You have no chance. An alchemist without any good cauldron is like a knight without a good sword. Did your master not teach you how important a good cauldron is when refining pills? Zin also brushed over his storage ring, and his cauldron appeared. It had a bright golden surface that reflected in the sun. The audience was blinded for a moment. Once their eyes adjusted, they took a closer look at Zin's cauldron and gasped. Not only was his cauldron bright golden, but it was also decorated with silver ornaments and jewels. It was in a strong contrast to Xavier's cauldron. Xavier ignored Zin's mocking words. He let his hand wander over his cauldron. A slight crack was on its surface. The heat of the heavenly flame is really too much for this cauldron to handle. Once the competition is over, I should look for a cauldron that has a higher quality. Though I don't think a good cauldron is not the most important thing when it comes to alchemy, I should not ignore it. As much as I hate to admit it, Zin had a point when he said an alchemist without a good cauldron is like a knight without a good sword. A sudden rise in temperature made Xavier tense up. He could sense that the heat came from Zin. As Xavier looked at Zin, he saw that a bright flame was in his hands. The flame had a similar golden color to the cauldron in front of Zin. It sparkled and danced happily. Xavier knitted his brows tightly together as he inspected the flame in Zin's hand. That's not an ordinary flame. This flame is a lot more powerful. It feels kind of familiar. I wonder what that thing in the middle is. It looks like there is golden lava flowing within the flame. This is very strange, but at least it's not a heavenly flame. The golden flame is nowhere near as powerful as any heavenly flame. From the looks and heat of it, I think it should be only slightly stronger than my purple monster flame. The audience was surprised to see the golden flame as well. They got lost in it, as if the golden flame was hypnotizing them. What sort of flame is this? In the arena, kept their eyes fixated on the golden flame that Zin summoned. They had no idea what sort of flame this was. All they knew was that it was more powerful than an ordinary alchemist's flame. It was mesmerizing to watch the flame dance on Zin's open palm. Xavier shook his head. Sure, Zin's flame is not too bad, but it's not that great, is it? At least not when compared to the heavenly flame I have. I guess the other students have never seen a heavenly flame before, or at least not most of them. Lai and Shiro have seen my green heavenly flame before. Xavier could not hold back a slight chuckle when remembering their faces as they saw the heavenly flame. Zin saw the big eyes of the students and had a proud smile. He raised his hand with the golden flame high into the air so that everyone could see it. What you see here is my golden flame. It used to belong to a level 7 fire scorpion monster. When a baby fire scorpion monster hatches, this flame will be left behind in its eggshell. The flame will only be there for 3 days, so if someone wants to get it, they need to be quick. Xavier finally understood why this flame felt so powerful. It's also a flame from a monster. This is why I thought it felt so familiar to my purple flame that I got from the winged amethyst lion, he thought. The audience was awed. The elders were no exception to this. A level 7 fire scorpion monster. Astonishing. Such a monster is very rare to come by. You can truly see the strength of the monster in this elegant, refined flame. Xavier stopped listening to all the people talking about the golden flame and flicked his fingers. Instantly, a cluster of green flames appeared in his hands. This did not escape Zin's notice. He looked at the flame, and his pupils shrank. That must be the mysterious green flame I have heard about. Zin swallowed and forced a smile to hide his frustration. I can tell that this is a powerful flame, but a powerful flame is not everything when it comes to refining pills. Zin shot his golden flame inside his cauldron. The bright glow distracted everyone. The golden color was beautiful and elegant. It was impossible to look away. Most people did not pay any attention to what Xavier was doing anymore. Xavier was frustrated by this. I wonder if this fire scorpion monster has some hypnotic ability to draw attention. It's weird that everyone is so hypnotized by this golden flame inside the golden cauldron. Is it my spiritual strength that keeps me protected from this effect? I wish I would have enough time to figure this out, but I should get started with refining the ingredients. Xavier sighed and shot his green heavenly flame inside his cauldron. Some of the elders who had a bit of knowledge about alchemy smirked and chuckled. They knew that Elder Lee had given these two students an almost impossible task. Zin was merely a level 4 alchemist. His chances of refining a level 5 pill were close to non-existent. Meanwhile, the elders had no idea what level Xavier was on. He could not have been much higher than Zin. Xavier and Zin did not see how the elders smirked and chuckled. All their focus was placed on refining the ingredients for the pill. They both looked lost as they stared into their cauldrons. Some of the students who did not know anything about alchemy assumed that staring into the cauldron must have been one of many steps when creating a pill. Xavier and Zin kept staring for 5 minutes. Xavier was the first to regain his senses. He shook his head and took a few deep breaths. It can't be helped. I have to get started, even if I'll mess this up. I have no choice. It's too late to back off. With trembling fingers, he placed a bunch of leaves inside the cauldron. Immediately afterward, he waved his hand to raise the temperature of the green heavenly flame. Droplets of sweat formed on his forehead. Getting the temperature right is extremely difficult. Only half a degree too hot, and this plant will be incinerated. Half a degree too cold, and the plant will wither in the cauldron, turning it into useless weed. Xavier could sense how the temperature of the flame slowly dropped. He raised his hand to increase the heat. The green light of the flame inside the cauldron reflected in his pupils. Xavier did not dare to blink. Any missed second could cause the end of it. He did not notice how he held his breath. Come on, I'm close to refining the first ingredient. Only 1 more minute. The students shifted their attention slowly from Zin's golden flame to Xavier. Is he really getting close to refining the pill? One of the students asked one of the alchemists who were seated next to him. The alchemist shook his head with laughter. Far from it. Xavier still needs to refine the ingredients before he can combine them and refine them into a pill. But I can tell that he is close to refining the first ingredient. If he can stay focused and keep the heat steady for another minute, the ingredient will be fully refined. Oh, I see. The curiosity of the student grew as the alchemist next to him explained what was going on. He leaned forward to see every detail of what was happening. More and more sweat ran down Xavier's forehead. The first ingredient was refined successfully, so he added the next one, and then another one. This went on, until he had refined more than 20 of the necessary ingredients. His hands were trembling. I need to raise the temperature some more. I can sense that it is going down. I need to be careful. Xavier raised his trembling hand slightly, and the green flame inside his cauldron devoured the plants inside the cauldron, and then went out. The cauldron spat a bit of ash out. Xavier's jaw dropped. Many disappointed noises came from the audience. A few people were happy to see Xavier fail, and snickered. Zin was of course also happy to see how Xavier failed in his first attempt. Everyone in the arena shifted their attention back to Zin. He had a sadistic grin on his face. That's too bad. Maybe you overestimated yourself. You're not that good of an alchemist. Not even a second after Zin mocked Xavier, his golden flame also went out with a puff. As Zin noticed this, his face turned pale. Another wave of disappointed noises could be heard from Zin's faction. At the same time, Sunny, Layla, Hao, and the other members of the Steel Gate faction laughed and cheered. The majority of the other students joined the mocking laughter. A few students were confused. What's so funny? Both of the flames went out. One of the students looked at the young alchemist next to him. The young alchemist was also laughing. Yes, that's true, but Xavier refined more than 20 ingredients before his flame went out. Zin, however, only refined 8. Zin should have really kept his mouth shut. Xavier blended out all the noise in the background. He used a bit of his Q energy and wrapped it around his ears. While it was not completely silent, it did help a lot. He closed his eyes. The audience was confused. Why is he closing his eyes? Don't tell me he's trying to sleep. Zin flicked his fingers, and his golden flame appeared again. He shot it aggressively into the cauldron. I can't waste any time. If I really end up losing this competition, I would lose all of my reputation as an alchemist. And even worse than that, I would lose my market stalls and the right to sell pills. It would be a nightmare for me and my faction. This time around, Zin managed to refine about 20 ingredients. His faction cheered loudly. Layla frowned. What is Xavier doing? Zin is catching up quickly. That idiot better know what he's doing. Don't call Xavier an idiot. I'm 100% sure Xavier knows what he's doing. He always has a plan, no matter what. Sunny glared at Layla with piercing bright eyes, making Layla shut up. Despite what she said, Sunny was unsure herself what Xavier was doing. He stood in front of the stone table with closed eyes for several minutes. While the students were confused by this behavior, some of the elders guessed what Xavier was doing. Elder Lee combed his fingers through his beard. If he is trying to do what I think, then I am very impressed. No wonder our first elder told us that this young man could save us all. I hope he can keep going. It must be exhausting. The students stopped chatting. They focused on Xavier, wondering what he was about to do. Something was about to happen. Suddenly, a sound came from one of the cauldrons, breaking the tense silence. It was followed by a cloud of smoke. 2 cauldrons, followed by a cloud of ash. Disappointed noises echoed through the arena. The doctors looked devastated as they saw one of the 2 cauldrons going out. It was Zin's cauldron that went out. Zin was shocked. Why did I fail again? Where did I go wrong? I was almost done with refining all the ingredients. He kept staring at his cauldron in disbelief. He could have sworn that he did everything right. Zin recounted all of his steps. No, I did not miss anything. I don't understand. This isn't fair. While Zin was sulking about his failure, Xavier finally opened his eyes. He stretched his arms as if he had just woken up. As Zin threw Xavier a flabbergasted look, Xavier replied with a smile. He waved his hand, and the green heavenly flame appeared. Xavier shot the flame back inside his cauldron, starting his second attempt. There were only enough ingredients to try and refine the dragon strength pill 3 times. If Xavier would fail this second attempt, he would only have one final attempt. This was why he did not want to rush things. If he would rush the refining process and mess it up, it would ruin everything. He knew he had to take this seriously. His Steelgate faction relied on him. Xavier took a deep breath. I need to try this with a different approach. Maybe it works like it does with wild animals. Someone once taught me that you need to show no fear when facing a wild animal. I need to stay focused and not let the fact that this is a level 5 pill scare me. The audience could see that Xavier's attitude changed after keeping his eyes closed for about 10 minutes and meditating. Some were confused. Sunny and the others were relieved. It looks as if Xavier does have a plan after all. Zin began to sweat. He glanced at the third and final batch of ingredients on his table. With trembling hands, he reached for them. This was his last chance. He knew he could not mess this up. Silently, he prayed for Xavier to fail his second attempt. Zin knew otherwise, he would not have much of a chance left. Somehow, Zin's silent cursing seemed to have an effect. Xavier added the last few ingredients to his cauldron, and the cauldron suddenly erupted. With a loud bang, the cover of the cauldron was shot high into the sky. The eruption was enough to burn the added ingredients and make the cauldron spit them out in the form of ash. The audience made more disappointed noises. Zin, on the other hand, sighed with relief and chuckled to himself. Now we both only have one set of ingredients left. I don't think either of us can succeed in refining a level 5 pill, but that does not matter. Elder Lee said if both of us will fail, the one with the better residue will win. Xavier did not care about the noise in the background. He still used some of his Q energy to blend out the noises. With a swift motion over his cauldron, the residue of the burned ingredients came flying out. He put it on the stone table and inspected it carefully. The dark ash had a red tint to it. Xavier sniffed it. I see. I think I'm starting to grasp how this is supposed to be done, he muttered. This time around, Xavier did not hesitate. He went to the top of his cauldron that was lying on the ground behind him and picked it up. He shot the green heavenly flame into the cauldron and then put the top on it. With another wave of his hand, the green heavenly flame rose. Xavier reached for the ingredients. He threw them carelessly into the cauldron, one by one. The onlookers were stunned. Does he think if he will speed things up, he'll succeed? He already failed the refining process when he tried to be as careful as possible. Is he insane? Sonny, Hal, and Layla were speechless. Layla gritted her teeth. What is that idiot doing? Did he give up? Sonny's wide eyes did not tear away from Xavier. Her hands were clenched into tight fists. No, I'm sure he has a plan. He always does. Hal crossed his arms in front of his chest. If that's a plan, it doesn't look like a good one. Shouldn't alchemists be careful when refining their ingredients? Sonny glared at him. Since when are you an expert on alchemy? Hal raised his hands in defense. I was just saying. The elders were also shocked. Elder Lee seemed disappointed. He shook his head. It looks like they both gave up. Now they want to refine a good residue instead of attempting to refine the pill. What a pity. I really overestimated them. Another few minutes passed. Eventually, Zin lifted the top of his cauldron and threw the top to the ground. He waved his hand over the cauldron, and his failed pill came forth, though it could not really be called a pill. All it was most of the refined ingredients forced into a pill-like shape. The shape of the pill had edges and dents. Its surface was not as smooth as the surface of a pill was supposed to be. All in all, it was a desperate attempt to refine a pill. It looked like an amateur's work, not a high-level pill of a respected alchemist. Any decent alchemist would have been ashamed to show this failed attempt at refining a pill. Zin gritted his teeth. This is so embarrassing. I can't believe this is the best I could do. It's nowhere near a fully formed pill. However, at least I managed to force the ingredients into a pill shape. I hope it beats whatever Xavier refines. With a lowered head, Zin walked over to Elder Lee. He handed the old man the pill. Elder Lee was unsure if he wanted to laugh or cry as he received the pill. He raised it between his fingers and inspected it. The pill had a mottled color on its rough surface. It smelled of ash and burnt grass. Its shape was weird as well. He then looked to Zin, who stood in front of him. Zin was clearly unhappy with his shoddy work. Elder Lee shook his head. I don't even know if I can call this a pill. It appears that Xavier has a higher chance of winning this time. Zin's blood was boiling as Elder Lee said this. We will see about that, he muttered. Hal and many others in the audience were confused. While everyone in the inner circle was familiar with fighting, not many were familiar with alchemy. Sonny, did he successfully refine it? Sonny shook her head. I'm not an alchemist either, but I did read books about it. They say that when a level 5 pill is successfully refined, strange phenomena would happen. There would be Q energy waves that are strong enough that everyone within this arena could feel them. I didn't sense anything, so this must be a failed pill. Hal nodded. He seemed relieved. Layla as well. While they could not confirm if this was true or not, they did trust Sonny, so they did not question this. We should not celebrate too early. Although this is a failed pill, it's still a pill. Hopefully Xavier can top this. Silently, she was praying that Xavier could successfully refine this pill. In the meantime, Xavier appeared to be unaware of all the people staring at him, or at least he pretended to not notice. His entire focus was fixated on his cauldron. A large cluster of red liquid was floating around in the green heavenly flame. Enormous energy was contained in this liquid. It contained the energy of all the ingredients that Xavier had refined. Now that the refining of the ingredients is done, it's time to merge them. This is going to be much more difficult than the refining of the ingredients. However, I think I know where I messed up the last time. During the first refinement, I split my spiritual strength. I used a large portion of it by wrapping it around the ingredients to prevent them from being burned, and another large portion to control the heavenly flame. Perhaps if I don't split my spiritual strength up, it'll be strong enough to prevent the heavenly flame from burning the ingredients. Xavier kept thinking it through. He did not want to make any careless mistakes. One mistake would be enough to ruin all his efforts. He moved his hand over the cauldron. The pressure on the red liquid increased. Powerful waves of Q energy came from it, as if it was trying to resist the increasing pressure of the heavenly flame that Xavier put onto it. Suddenly, the cauldron trembled. Xavier's eyes widened in shock. A loud bang came from the cauldron. It trembled. Xavier furrowed his brows and stomped onto the ground with his feet. At the same time, he clenched his hand into a fist. Suddenly, the trembling in the cauldron stopped. This is bad. I knew this was going to be difficult, but I did not expect this dragon strength pill to resist so much. The resistance the refined ingredients have is at least twice as strong than the one of the three-lined pill that I refined back during the alchemy competition in the Empire of the Heavens. Xavier's face turned red with effort. Droplets of sweat ran down his forehead. Everyone in the audience could see how Xavier's expression changed. They held their breath. Their hearts raced. No one dared to blink out of fear they would miss anything. Xavier's heart skipped a beat. Once more, he urged the heavenly flame under his spiritual control to push the ingredients to take on shape. Again, the ingredients resisted. It was as if the ingredients were pushing the heat back. Xavier waved his hand, increasing the strength of the heavenly flame a little bit more. If necessary, he would increase his strength a bit more. He was terrified of accidentally burning the refined ingredients. Exhaustion overcame him. Xavier was not sure if he could do a third attempt. He could feel how his Q energy was getting less and less. Even though Xavier increased the strength of the heavenly flame, the pill pushed back again. Xavier got frustrated. This pill is much harder to refine than I imagined. Damn it! Merge already! As Xavier cried out, the people in the audience gasped. Why is he screaming around? It's not going to help, is it? The elders also exchanged a few looks. That is an interesting method, to say the least. Can't say I've ever seen an alchemist screaming at his pill during the process, one of the elders murmured. For some reason, it did seem to help. The liquid in Xavier's cauldron shivered as if it was scared, and gave up resisting the heavenly flame. Within seconds, it was pushed into the form of a small red pill. Xavier's eyes widened. That's amazing. It's working. I can't believe this. He laughed a bit. Finally, the most difficult step was over. Once the pill had its shape, the rest of the process was going to be a little bit easier. Although there was still a high chance he would mess up, this chance was a lot lower than before the ingredients merged into shape. Xavier increased the heat of the heavenly flame to grill the small pill. This step was essential to make sure the pill would stay in form. From the outer appearance of the pill, it was possible to tell that this was already a better pill than the failed one from Zin. The pill that Zin created was more of a poison than anything. No one would swallow this failed pill, not even if they would get paid for it. Zin saw how Xavier's pill took on shape and gnashed his teeth. I can't believe this. I can't believe I'm actually losing to a new student. He lowered his head, glaring at Xavier with burning eyes. Elder Lee kept a close eye on Zin. The old man worried that Zin would otherwise jump at Xavier's throat. Zin swallowed heavily. No, I should not worry about this yet. It's a level 5 pill. There's no way he manages to refine a level 5 pill. There's still a few steps Xavier has to go through before it's finished. Each step is essential. If he only fails one, the entire pill is ruined. If Xavier's pill is ruined, then I have at least something to show. That's more than Xavier will have. Zin muttered to himself, trying to calm his nerves. He looked as if he was losing it. Elder Lee shook his head as he watched Zin. He then quickly turned back to watch Xavier. The green heavenly flame inside Xavier's cauldron was dancing around the pill. Gradually, the pill took on a more regular shape. The bumps on its surface smoothed out. The luster on its surface also grew brighter. Xavier was sweating not only because of the stress, but also because of the intense heat. Sitting in front of the heavenly flame for so long without any break would cause anyone to sweat. His face was turning more and more pale. It was clear that Xavier was reaching his limit. He hoped that he could finish this pill before running out of energy. While Xavier finished one step after the other, Zin's face turned uglier every time. Silently, he cursed Xavier, praying for his downfall. Of course, this did not help. Zin really underestimated Xavier's ability. If he had known that Xavier was such a capable alchemist, Zin would have never agreed to this competition. He glared at Xavier with eyes that were burning with hatred. Xavier was too busy focusing on his pill to notice. His breathing was heavy. Not much longer and I'll be out of Q energy and spiritual strength. I need to keep going. I need to finish this. He kept staring inside the cauldron. A dark red pill was visible beneath the cluster of the green heavenly flame. At first glance, It looked like any ordinary pill. No one would suspect it to be a level 5 pill. Xavier could tell that it was about to go into its final stage. Then, it would take on the form of a true level 5 pill. The pill started to rotate in the flame. Xavier did not look away for a single second. He was terrified of messing it up. He tried his hardest to hide this fear. He did not want anyone to notice. The rotating of the pill got faster and faster. The audience gasped. Is this supposed to happen? Everyone in the audience looked for an alchemist to see what expression they had. You're an alchemist, right? Can you tell me if the pill is supposed to spin in the cauldron like this? One of the students turned to an alchemist who was close to him. The alchemist in question was a young woman. She leaned over the railing to see as much as possible. Her mouth was wide open, and so were her eyes. She did not look away as she answered. I have no idea. I've never refined a level 5 pill. I think if he keeps going, he might actually manage it. As she said this, she sounded as if she could not believe her own words. Not too far from the young alchemist in the audience were Sunny, Layla, and Hal. As they overheard what the young alchemist said, they smiled at each other. Did you guys hear that? Sunny beamed with joy. Yes, I did. Xavier has a chance after all. I feel awful for doubting his ability. I should have known he would manage. Layla sighed. Maybe we should not get too excited yet. She did say that Xavier can manage if things continue this way, but it's not over yet. We should wait to see what's going to happen. Hal and Sunny agreed. The tension between them became unbearable. Xavier tried to not let this influence him. I remember that time Master Lau refined a level 5 pill for me on the back of the giant bird. That was when we made our way to the Tag Desert. The energy coming from the pill was extremely chaotic. I can sense that the energy from my pill is also chaotic, but not as much as the one of Master Lau. I hope I'm not about to mess this up. If I would fail now, everything would be ruined. I need to win this round. Xavier took a deep breath. He could not afford to make any mistake. He was entering the final steps of refining the pill. It was only a matter of minutes now. Not once did he look away from the cauldron. His eyes were burning. Any second was crucial. Any missed second could be his downfall. Xavier's pupils dilated. In the corner of his eye, he could see how the small crack in the surface of his cauldron spread. No, shit, no. This can't be happening. Not right now. Xavier cursed the cauldron loudly. This did nothing to stop the crack from spreading. Each cracking sound was like thunder in his ears. Why does this happen every time I need to win a competition? I'll never buy a cheap cauldron again. Xavier gritted his teeth. His hands were trembling. He could not hide his fear anymore. There was a deadly silence amongst the audience. Everyone heard the cracking sound coming from Xavier's cauldron and held their breath. Xavier kept focusing on the pill inside his cauldron. He could not afford to waste any time cursing his aching cauldron. The audience was deadly silent. They all could see or hear how the cracks in Xavier's cauldron spread further and further, making it look as if there was a spider web appearing on its surface. Sunny, Layla, and Hal held their breath. See, I told you that we should wait and celebrate. Layla crossed her arms in front of her chest and sank deeper into her chair. Meanwhile, pure shock was written all over Sunny's face. Another crack appeared in Xavier's cauldron. The only person who did not hold their breath was Zin. He had a wide grin on his face. Looks like you should have taken my advice and showed up with a better cauldron, you idiot. He did not hold back his laughter. Elder Lee gave him an annoyed look. He walked up to Zin, smacked his hand against the back of his head, and dragged him a bit further away from Xavier. Don't interrupt an alchemist at his work. Did your master not bother to teach you that? Zin rolled his eyes, but did not argue. In the meantime, a powerful Q-energy ripple came from Xavier's pill. If the cauldron would have been in a good state, this would have been a good sign. However, since Xavier's cauldron was about to fall apart, this was the last straw that broke the camel's back. With one bang, Xavier's cauldron shattered. Bits and pieces of the metal were flying through the air. People were cursing, crying, and yelling. Elder Lee's shoulders dropped. He let out a deep breath. He failed after all. What a shame. If he had a cauldron with a higher level, he would have managed to refine this pill. He looked at the spot where Xavier refined his pill. Dark fog surrounded it. No one could see Xavier in it. All they could see or hear from Xavier was a loud cough. Moments later, Xavier stepped out from the smog. They saw how his face and clothes were covered with ash. Charred holes were in his black robe. A deep cut was in his tightly clenched fist. Blood was leaking from it. The audience turned silent again as they saw it. Even the people who were hoping Zin would win felt bad for Xavier. His cauldron exploding at such a crucial moment was really unfair. The smoke became less and less. Zin stepped forward to Xavier and had an apologetic smile on his face. "Looks like you failed. You should not feel too bad about it. Failing the refinement process is very common for us alchemists. Now, about the 3 formulas you owe me, you should hand—" Xavier ignored Zin and brushed past him. Zin was left there with a dumbstruck expression. "I guess he is a sore loser. I will get back to him later." Xavier did not care. Without any hesitation, he walked up to Elder Lee. The old man looked devastated. Silently, he tried to find comforting words to say. He thought Xavier must have felt awful. Much to the old man's surprise, Xavier smiled at him and took a respectful bow. He then stretched out his clenched fist. As Xavier opened it, a dark red pill with some bloodstains on it became visible. The elder was flabbergasted. The pill? As the people in the arena saw that Xavier held something in his hand, they went wild. "What is this? That's not the pill, is it? It looks as if it's the pill. How did he do that? That's impossible!" Sonny, Hao, and Layla were at a loss for words. They wanted to be happy, but part of them thought that this was too good to be true. After all, they did see how Xavier's cauldron exploded. They had no idea how Xavier could have done that. Zin's face turned white. "This is impossible. He must use some trick. Maybe he pulled out a pill from his storage ring while he was covered by the smoke. There's no way he could have succeeded. You all saw how his cauldron exploded." "Mr. Zin, this is not your decision to make." Elder Lee glared at Zin. His annoyance with the young man grew. Zin must have noticed. He took an apologetic bow toward the elder. "Of course I understand, Elder Lee. I am sorry." Elder Lee did not look much happier, but shifted his attention back toward Xavier. Xavier smiled. "I'm sure you can verify that this is the correct pill, Elder Lee." Elder Lee hesitated for a moment. He took a deep breath and reached for the pill in Xavier's open hand with his bony old fingers. He raised the pill, inspecting it carefully through his glasses. He then placed the pill inside his own hand. The pill had enough Q energy inside to affect the old man. The elder was very powerful after all. He was a high-ranking Q master. The pill in his hand was strong enough to make him shiver. Elder Lee kept staring at the pill without saying a word. According to his knowledge, this truly was the Dragon Strength pill. The other elders wanted to see what was going on and hurried through the arena to Elder Lee and Xavier. As they saw the pill, they looked surprised. Elder Lee rolled his eyes. "Oh, you nosy old people. Here, take a look. This should be the Dragon Strength pill, if I am not mistaken." One of the elders grabbed the pill and inspected it. His face turned pale. He glanced at Xavier and then back at the pill. "You were right, Elder Lee. This is the Dragon Strength pill. I have seen it before when Master Takeshi refined it." The other elders gasped and awed. "How unexpected. This young alchemist really refined a level 5 pill. But how did he do this? His cauldron exploded, didn't it?" The elders gave Xavier a questioning and doubtful look. Xavier understood. He did not mind explaining it. You see, when the cauldron was about to explode, the pill was already in its final stage. The explosion that caused the cauldron to break was the explosion that naturally occurs when a level 5 pill finished the refinement. Luckily, this means that the pill was done by this point. The elder sighed in relief. "I see. That is incredible, young man. I hope you don't mind if we get back to you in the future to refine some more level 5 pills. An alchemist who can refine a level 5 pill is hard to come by, even in the inner circle of Nanji Academy." Xavier laughed. "Sure, as long as you'll bring me the ingredients for it, I don't mind." The elders were clearly thrilled to hear this. They continued to praise Xavier as the people in the audience saw what was going on. Any tension left. They broke into applause and cheering. Sonny, Layla, and Hao cheered the loudest. The only people that were unhappy were Zin and the doctors. They knew that they were forced to give up their 5 market stalls and their right to sell pills in the inner circle. The doctor's attitude towards Zin changed. They looked at him with angry and frustrated looks. It was obvious that they were plotting to get rid of him as their leader. Zin had failed them and destroyed everything they had worked so hard for. Elder Lee did not hide his smug smile as he saw Zin's defeated expression. He knew that Zin needed to be humbled. "Mr. Zin, do you have any objections?" Zin turned to Elder Lee. As he sensed the Q energy in the old man surge, Zin shrank. "No, sir. I am sorry." Elder Lee clapped his hands. "All right then, if that is the case, I declare this alchemy competition to be over. The winner is Xavier of the Xiao clan." The members of the Steelgate faction broke into loud cheering and applauding. Seconds later, the other people in the audience joined. Sonny, Hao, and Layla could be heard cheering throughout the entire arena. They stood up to cheer, and like a wave, everyone else in the arena stood up to cheer as well. Xavier turned to Sonny and the others. He grinned as he saw his enthusiastic friends. "They seem more excited than me." Zin gnashed his teeth. "Don't get too cocky. This isn't over." Before Xavier could tell Zin that this was definitely over, Zin stomped to the other doctors. They were waiting for him. None of them looked happy. Elder Lee patted Xavier's shoulders. "Rest assured, I will keep an eye on Zin to prevent him from going after you. We had an agreement after all. He needs to obey the rules, no matter how unhappy he is." The old man then handed the red pill back to Xavier. "Thank you, Elder Lee." Xavier took the pill gratefully. He rolled it over his palm a few times. It was an odd feeling to hold such a powerful pill in his hand. Though he had many powerful pills in his possession before, none of them were refined by him. A sense of incredible pride overcame him. It took several minutes until the cheering in the arena stopped. No one could believe what they saw. An alchemist refining a level 5 pill was a big deal. It was not something the students saw every day. By the time the last person, namely Sonny, stopped cheering, Xavier was a flustered mess. "Man, I'll never get used to this." In his hand was the Red Dragon Strength Pill. It felt warm to the touch, almost as if it was a living being. Elder Lee looked at Xavier with great pride. Xavier saw this and smiled. After a moment of hesitation, he stretched out his hand with the pill. "Elder Lee, I want to thank you for the formula, and for your service as a judge. The least I can do is give you this pill. The formula was most likely worth a lot more than 1 pill." Elder Lee was stunned. He failed to hide the desire in his eyes as he saw the dark red pill. He stretched out his hand and was about to take it as he suddenly froze. Elder Lee quickly pulled his hand back and shook his head with a laugh. "You are tempting me, Xavier, but I do not think that this is a good idea. I could tell that the others also wanted this pill. If I would keep it, I would never hear the end of it. If you really want to, you can refine a pill for me in the future, but you don't have to. Right now is not the time for this, but I appreciate it." Xavier nodded and put the level 5 pill inside his storage ring. "If you say so. I don't mind refining a pill for you, but it might be hard to get the necessary ingredients." "You were worried about the ingredients? Oh well, I suppose I can tell you. You see, the inner circle has stored a large amount of ingredients. We have spent many years gathering them. I am one of the elders who manages this ingredient warehouse. If you have any time in the future, you might want to show up. Just to take a look, of course," Elder Lee said with a knowing smirk and winked at Xavier. Xavier was surprised at Elder Lee's offer. He immediately understood. His heart leapt with joy. "Thank you, Elder Lee. I'll make sure to show up." "Don't worry about it, Xavier. Oh, and before I forget, there is something I have to tell you." The smile on the old man's face suddenly dropped. Whatever it was that he wanted to tell Xavier, it was clearly not something good. Elder Lee took his glasses off and cleaned them with a cloth before he continued. "Since your Steelgate faction is now officially selling pills for fire energy, you must pay 20% of your earnings to the inner circle. So for example, if you earn 1,000 days worth of fire energy, you will have to pay 200. Xavier's expression turned sour. Elder Lee saw this and let out an awkward laugh. I know. I am sorry, Xavier. I wasn't the one who put this rule into effect, so please do not get mad at me. You know how profitable selling pills is. Therefore, the inner circle had to put this restriction into place. Otherwise, the life for the alchemists in the inner circle would be too easy. Or at least that's what our first elder and the deputy headmaster said. Mr. Zinn also had to pay 20% for his faction. But Elder Lee, isn't 20% a bit much? You're interested in alchemy, so I'm sure you know how expensive ingredients are. Not to mention, not every refinement is successful, so a lot of the ingredients will be wasted. Even an alchemy master fails every now and then. That is part of the profession. I also need to get a new cauldron. Xavier did not want to argue, but a bitter feeling spread in his heart. Silently, he began to calculate how much fire energy he could charge for his pills. He knew that without Zinn and the doctors competing against him, he could go up with his rates. However, Xavier also knew that if he raised his prices too much, he and his Steelgate faction would not remain popular. Elder Lee bit his lips. After a moment of tense silence, he let out a sigh. He took a few steps away from the other elders who were still close by, and gestured for Xavier to follow him. Once the elders were a bit away, Elder Lee leaned closer to Xavier. I know how you must feel, Xavier. How about we make an exception? You and your Steelgate faction will only have to pay 10% instead of the usual 20%. You're all new students here, and you are a very promising alchemist. It would be a shame to hold you back by preventing you from practicing alchemy as much as possible. Xavier's eyes lit up. Really? Thank you so much, Elder Lee. But are you allowed to do this? I don't want to get you into trouble. If this is against the rules, then I'll pay the 20% without arguing about it. It's all right, Xavier. Normally, we would not be allowed to do this, but the first elder instructed us to take good care of you, so I'm not going against the rules by giving you some special treatment. Xavier did not know why the first elder would do so, but he did not continue to argue. With a smile, he thanked the old man. If that's the case, then I would like to thank you, Elder Lee. I'll get back to you and give you the Dragon Strength pill later, and refine a pill for you as well. Oh, don't worry about this for now. You should go back to your friends, celebrate your victory, and then get some rest. I can tell that you must be very exhausted. Tomorrow, you and your faction can head out and take over the stalls of the doctors. I know what stalls Zinn gave up. They're located in very good places. Your faction will make a fortune. Good luck, Xavier. I wish you all the best. Elder Lee said goodbye and headed out of the arena. Xavier made his way to Sonny and the others. As he got close to them, he was greeted with loud cheering. Sonny immediately hugged Xavier. I was not sure if you would manage this, but now I feel bad for doubting you. Xavier reciprocated the hug. Don't feel bad. I wasn't sure if I would manage either. Refining a level 5 pill is a huge deal for an alchemist. Honestly, I still can't believe that I actually managed it. As he let go of Sonny, Hal patted Xavier heavily on his back. Yeah, I couldn't believe it either. Good job, Xavier. If you're ever in the mood to refine another level 5 pill in the future. Absolutely not, Hal. Forget about it. The only pills I'm going to refine anytime soon are pills for the Steelgate faction, so we can earn more fire energy. This is going to be hard enough. Zinn and his faction had the bonus of many alchemists. Our Steelgate faction only has me. It'll be hard to work to fill the demand. At least we won't have to worry about running out of fire energy anytime soon. Xavier and the others laughed. The other members of the Steelgate faction also joined in congratulating Xavier. It took more than an hour until Xavier and the others finally headed back to their living quarters. Hal and Layla managed to get some drinks and food, and threw a large celebration. Every member of the Steelgate faction was invited, and though it was Xavier's celebration, Xavier did not stay for too long. He snuck out to catch some fresh air after an hour. Sonny followed him. It was already dark. Only the bright moon shed some light. The sound of chirping crickets could be heard. Sonny put a hand on Xavier's shoulder. Thank you, Xavier. You saved our faction. Xavier shrugged it off. I am the leader of the faction, or not. If I would stand around and do nothing, I wouldn't make a good figure as a leader. I just did this because I had to. There was no way around it. I'm glad this is over. With the market stalls, We won't have to worry about running out of fire energy anytime soon. Xavier continued to talk with Sonny until it was late at night, before heading to his room. He took off his damaged clothes and went straight to bed. While he was sleeping, the people downstairs continued to celebrate Xavier's victory throughout the entire night. Days after the competition, the entire inner circle was talking about Xavier. His reputation skyrocketed. Alchemists who could refine level 5 pills were hard to come by, even in the inner circle of the prestigious Nanji Academy. This means that not only many of the students who did not like Xavier came around and gained a whole lot of new respect for him, but also the elders. They acted a lot warmer around Xavier than before. Although the first elder instructed them to be especially nice to Xavier, up until now, they had their doubts. But with Xavier's victory during the alchemy competition against Zin, all these doubts were gone. Xavier used all of this new reputation to his advantage and promoted his alchemy business. Within 3 days, everyone in the inner circle heard the news. Many of the students got interested in Xavier's pills. They frequently visited the new market stalls of the Steelgate faction and queued up to get their hands on any of Xavier's pills. The doctors were reluctant to hand over the market stalls, but after Elder Lee threatened them, they stopped drawing out the handover. They could only helplessly watch as the members of the Steelgate faction exchanged the insignia of the doctors with their own. After gaining 5 market stalls, the Steelgate faction experienced a boom in their sales. Within 1 day, they sold about 200 pills. 2 days later, they were out of pills. Xavier sat in the hall, staring at the green fire crystal card in his hand. It had increased by an insane amount. Xavier's mouth was dry. I've been refining pills for the entire 2 days, but we can't keep up with the high demand for pills. I was afraid this would happen. I've been thinking about this for a while, and I guess there's no way around it anymore. We need to look for more alchemists and hire them for our faction. Sonny, Hal, and Layla, who also sat at the table in the large hall of their living quarters, were surprised to hear that. Sonny sighed. I did think that you would suggest that eventually. I didn't think that you would suggest this in the first week, though, but the demand is really a lot higher than I expected, so I should not be surprised. Hal furrowed his brows. But if you hire more alchemists, doesn't this mean that you'll have to share your alchemy formulas? Is this a good idea? That's unavoidable. I don't mind sharing the formulas for the 3 pills that we're selling. Sure, they're valuable, but definitely not as valuable as a level 5 pill. I would prefer to share them and get help than stay inside the house to refine pills 24/7. I want to go back to training. I'm also constantly exhausted. Xavier was not lying as he said this. The others knew. They could see the dark rings around Xavier's eyes, and the way he bent over the table as if he was about to fall asleep. Sonny, I'll leave this matter to you. You're smart enough to hire someone discreetly. Sonny chuckled. Are you worried that one of the doctors will try to sneak into our faction? Layla, who finished her drink, let out a loud laugh. Do you think Zin wants these 3 formulas so badly that he'll dress up with a fake mustache to join our faction? Xavier shook his head. I don't think he cares about the 3 formulas, but I wouldn't be surprised if he wants to send someone to destroy our faction from the inside. We need to be careful who we let in. Sonny is good when it comes to dealing with people, so I trust her to find someone suitable. Sonny flushed red, but did not comment on this. I will take care of it. Don't worry, Xavier. And so she did. Although Xavier knew Sonny would get this done, he was left speechless by her efficiency. 2 days after their conversation, Sonny found 3 level 3 alchemists in the inner circle who, according to their own words, never had anything to do with Zin's faction. Since they did not want to join the doctors, they were frequently bullied by the doctors and held a grudge against Zin and his faction. Though normally they had no interest in joining a faction, things looked different when the Steelgate faction showed up. This was only because everyone knew that the Steelgate faction had an alchemist as their leader, who could refine level 5 pills. Xavier was the one interviewing them in the large hall. All of you assured me that you had nothing to do with Zin and his faction, and all of you are level 3 alchemists. Is this correct? The 3 alchemists, 2 young men, only slightly older than Xavier, and 1 young woman nodded. They looked eager to join the Steelgate faction. All right then, that's good. I want you all to refine a healing pill. I'll inspect the quality of this pill. You have 1 hour. The three alchemists wasted no time. Much to Xavier's relief, they refined the requested pill without any issue. Xavier inspected the pills and was happy with their quality. Thank you all for your cooperation. Since all of you passed the test, you're all welcome to join our Steelgate faction. The three alchemists were thrilled and immediately went to work. For the first 2 days, all of them refined countless healing pills. On the third day, Xavier invited them to the large hall inside his living quarters. Instead of joining them immediately to tell them what was going on, he overheard their conversations from behind the door. Xavier needed to be sure he could trust them. The young female alchemist sighed and stretched herself. I wonder why he told us to come to this hall. Do any of you know something? I'm afraid I don't know anything. I hope we didn't mess up. I did fail a few refinements in the past 2 days, but I hope that's not enough of a reason to get kicked out. I really enjoy being a part of the Steelgate faction, one of the alchemists answered. He fidgeted with his fingers. The other alchemist tried to calm him down. I wouldn't worry about that. Failing a refinement every now and then is normal for every alchemist. I'm sure Xavier is aware of that. I would be surprised if he would kick us out. It was hard for them to find alchemists that aren't associated with Zin and the doctors. Honestly, I'm surprised there are still so many members in Zin's faction. Zin caused them to lose 5 market stalls. I really expected his faction to fall apart after that, or at least hire a new, more competent leader. The young woman let out a high-pitched laugh. I'm not surprised by that at all. The doctors have always been idiots. None of them are on a high level, yet they act like they're masters. In any ordinary alchemist society outside the inner circle, they would be a laughingstock. The only reason they're as popular as they are is because there are not as many alchemists in the inner circle to begin with. You have a good point. They've always been bullies and nothing more. The pills they sell are not of any high quality either. That was one of the reasons I did not want to join them. I would be embarrassed to sell low-quality pills for high prices. They were not happy as I told them that. Anyway, Xavier takes great pride in the quality of his work, so I'm happy to join his faction. Same. I know that the doctors had no competition and therefore did not care what quality their pills had, but it is not a good practice. Not only because people rely on these pills, but also because refining low-quality pills won't get you far as an alchemist. If you want to get anywhere as an alchemist, you need to put in everything. How else will people ever take you and your work seriously? Right? My friends called me dumb for not joining the doctors, but I'm 100% sure it was the right decision. Otherwise, I would not be here right now. The other alchemists agreed and kept chatting. Xavier decided that he had heard enough and entered the hall. Hello, everyone. Thanks for waiting. I'm sorry. I know I'm late, but it's very hectic. Xavier took an apologetic bow at the alchemists. Oh, it's all right. We understand. One of the alchemists laughed, and the others agreed with him. Thank you. Now, do any of you know why I called you here? Xavier raised an eyebrow and looked from one of the alchemists to the other. None of them could answer. After thinking for a moment, they shook their heads. Is it because I failed a few refinements yesterday? I was kind of nervous. It was my first day working as an alchemist for a faction. I'll make sure to improve my work. One of the young men stood up and took a bow. Xavier was flustered. No, don't worry. You're all doing a great job. This is why I wanted to give you something. With one smooth motion, 3 objects came flying forth from Xavier's storage ring. The eyes of the young alchemist in front of him widened with shock. Alchemists in the hall looked at Xavier with disbelief. From Xavier's storage ring came 3 scrolls. Xavier smiled and put the scrolls on the table in the middle of the hall. These are 3 formulas. One is for my healing pill, the other is for the Q energy recovery pill, and the third one is the anti-fire poison pill. I trust the 3 of you enough to let you read them. However, I need you to sign this. Xavier pulled out a piece of paper from his storage ring and placed it next to the scrolls. This document says that you're not allowed to share the information that's contained within these formulas with any other alchemist for as long as we are students in the inner circle. Once we graduate and move on, you're free to share the knowledge with any alchemist you meet. Up until then, you have to keep silent. Understood? One of the alchemists reached for the document and let his eyes wander over it. After a minute, he pulled out a pen from his pocket and signed the paper. He then handed it to the next alchemist, who did the same. Once everyone signed it, Xavier took the paper, inspected it, and then put it into his storage ring. Thank you all. As you have read in the document, if you share the knowledge about what's written in the formulas with anyone in the inner circle, you'll be immediately kicked out of our Steelgate faction. Additionally, you'll have to pay our faction 500 days worth of fire energy. I understand that this punishment is harsh, but I am sure you know why it's necessary. They understood. None of the three alchemists complained about the tight rules. Instead, they were filled with joy as they read the three formulas. Xavier stayed for a minute to answer any questions they had, and then went back to work. With the three new helpers, Xavier could finally catch his breath. It felt as if an immense weight had been lifted off his shoulders. Now, he could finally get back to his training. However, before doing so, Xavier decided to take a break. He did not feel like going back to the hot, crowded, dark tower. He was also worried about the hidden fire poison. After seeing how badly it affected Jan, Xavier took the hidden fire poison more seriously, despite the help of his green heavenly flame. The first day that he had off, Xavier strolled through the inner circle. He checked out the trading area again and bought some useful ingredients. When he reached the living quarters again in the evening, he ran into Hao, who just rushed out of the building and bumped into Xavier. Hey, be careful. Oh, sorry, Xavier. Didn't see you there. Hao apologized without stopping. Xavier decided to chase after him. Hao, why are you in such a hurry? Is everything all right? Sure, but I don't want to be late. Late for what, Hao? If you come along, I'll show you. After a bit of hesitation, Xavier agreed. He followed Hao all the way through the inner circle. After an hour, they stopped in front of an enormous arena. By the time they arrived, it was night, but the arena was well lit. Xavier could hear the chanting of the crowd. Xavier and Hao entered it. Though the arena was full, it was not as crowded as during the alchemy competition. The people who saw Xavier immediately jumped aside to make space. They whispered to each other. Xavier pretended to not hear the conversations near him. Meanwhile, Hao chuckled. I'm glad you came along. I don't think they would let me pass through. Want some snacks? Hao pointed at a vendor who sold some savory and sweet treats. Sure, why not? Xavier saw no reason to decline Hao's offer. Moments later, they found themselves sitting on 2 seats with bags of snacks. Hao, why are we here again? If I have to take a guess, there's a fight going on? Xavier, this is not any ordinary fight. You haven't heard about it? Hao sounded genuinely surprised. No, I haven't. Some of us have to work. Xavier threw Hao a judging glance, making Hao flush red and laugh. Sorry, I forgot. I guess you're right. But once I'm a successful warrior and win more competitions, I'll make up for it, I promise. I'm already a lot better than when I started out. Not much longer, and I'll become a battle spirit. Layla and Sunny are getting closer there too. Anyway, today's fight is between 2 level 6 battle spirits. One is called Demon Hunter, and the other is the Snow Princess. I've seen a fight with a Demon Hunter before, and it was pretty wild. The elders had to interrupt the fight because his opponent was too badly injured. Oh, you might want to keep your guard up, Xavier. The Demon Hunter is infamous for his wind attribute. The last time I saw him fight, there was lots of debris flying around. Some people in the audience had to get medical treatment. Xavier thanked Hao for the heads up and shoved a handful of snacks into his mouth. Not long after, the fight began. The Demon Hunter looked exactly like Xavier imagined someone with that name would look like. Despite his wind attribute, he showed up in thick Q energy armor that made him look like a black knight. He waved his hand, and an insanely large medieval mace appeared. Then, the Snow Princess made her appearance. She wore a white and silver robe that was made out of white fur. She wore matching white boots and had her hair tied up with a white bow tie. She waved her hands, and 2 white fans appeared. Hao leaned closer to Xavier and whispered in his ear. I know this doesn't look like much, but you should not underestimate her. She's really tough. Xavier nodded with his mouth full of snacks. As the gong sounded, everyone in the audience turned silent. The fight began. The Demon Hunter and the Snow Princess rushed at each other. The Snow Princess waved her fans, and a gust of icy wind came from them. The ground beneath the icy wind froze. A thick layer of ice covered the ground. The Snow Princess jumped onto the layer of ice and gracefully slid over it, rushing closer to her enemy. The demon hunter was forced to stop. With his Q-energy armor, he had no chance of sliding over the ice without tripping. His armor was not made for cold weather. He swung his mace and aimed a Q-energy attack at the Snow Princess. She waved her fans to block the Q-energy wave that was about to hit her with a thick ice wall. Xavier was reminded of the Ice Emperor. Although the Snow Princess was clearly very talented when fighting with her ice attribute, she was nowhere near as powerful as the Ice Emperor. Therefore, the wall she created out of thin air was enough to impress the students around Xavier, but not enough to impress him. Hao, on the other hand, was thrilled. "Isn't this cool? Man, it must be awesome to create walls of ice just like that. Hey Xavier, you think we should ask her to join our faction?" This comment made Xavier laugh. "You think a level 6 battle spirit would want to join our new faction?" Hal laughed awkwardly and rubbed the back of his head. "Well, probably not any new faction, but a faction that's led by an alchemist who can refine a level 5 pill could be interesting, right? I think it would be worth a shot." Xavier shrugged. "If you want, you can ask her. But I'm not going to. I'm too busy to run around and recruit people." "You are? Then why did you come along to watch the fight with me? Speaking of which, I didn't see you work today." "Oh, you're one to talk. I have never seen you work, and I don't complain about that, do I? Anyway, this is the first day I had off in months. Just let me have this, please. I'm constantly exhausted from refining pills and training," Xavier complained. Hal patted Xavier's shoulders. "I know, I'm just messing around. Sorry. How's your training coming along? Are you also getting close to becoming a battle spirit?" Xavier tilted his head from the left to the right. "Yes, but not as close as I want to be. The alchemy competition and refining pills were my priority for the last few days. I'm glad that's over. Now, I can hopefully get back to my training. Speaking of which, I really should practice my D techniques. There's one that I should practice, but so far, I've had no time to do much with it." "What sort of D technique?" Hal asked. "It's called Lightning Storm, and it's an agility D technique, diamond level," Xavier explained. "How odd. Diamond level. Nice." Xavier nodded and dodged the pieces of ice that flew in his direction as the demon hunter broke the ice wall of the Snow Princess into hundreds of pieces. "I should get to training as soon as possible. Sitting around and doing nothing won't get me any closer to becoming a battle spirit." Xavier spent the rest of the evening with Hao. After the fight was over, and the Snow Princess lost the fight with the demon hunter after a streak of bad luck, they went to get some drinks. Hao showed Xavier an inn that Taro had shown him a few days ago. They offered a variety of different foods and drinks. They also served beer, wine, and cocktails. Surprisingly enough, Hao was not used to drinking alcohol and quickly got drunk, much to Xavier's amusement. After a few hours, late in the night, they stumbled their way back to the living quarters. "Xavier, I'm sorry for being such an ass. I was just jealous of you and Sunny. I didn't want to be mean to you." Hal was almost about to burst into tears. The guilt was eating him up. Xavier laughed and almost tripped over his own feet. Although he tried to make sure to not drink too much, he did drink a bit more than he should have. He instinctively reached for Hal's arm to not fall over. "It's fine. Many people want to kill me when they meet me for the first time. I stopped taking it personally." "They're just jealous, like I was. Everyone would want to be with a girl like Sunny. She's amazing, and smart, and sweet, and... Oh, sorry. I don't want to step too close. You know, there was something else that Sunny told me. Something about you that..." Hal raised his head and looked at the stars that were brightening the dark night. "Hal, you should watch your feet, not the stars. What did Sunny tell you?" "She told me that you're an orphan. You know, I'm an orphan too. I got adopted by Master Wu. He even gave me his last name, Wu. That's a big deal. I know you're not from the continent of the heavens, so I think things are different where you're from." Xavier nodded. "Yeah, they were. Back where I grew up, I didn't even know what Q-energy was. When I arrived here, it felt like waking up in a fantasy book. But I'm glad I'm here. Life is hard no matter where you are, but at least here, I have friends and family. I felt more at home here than anywhere else. How about you? Hal shrugged. I guess you have a point. Life's tough. I don't want to complain either. There's no point in that. I'll make sure to keep training and eventually avenge my parents. Do you know who killed them? Xavier asked. I wish. All the evidence I could get was what Master Wu found at the scene. It wasn't much, just some footprints and a badge that I still own. It must have belonged to one of the bandits who killed my parents. I'm so grateful for Master Wu. He was one of the first people to arrive. Carried me out of the house, hid my eyes so I wouldn't see my dead parents' mutilated bodies, and offered me a place to stay. I was a small kid, so I know I shouldn't feel bad for what happened, but I can't help it. I still feel guilty about it. I didn't do anything. Tears formed in Hao's eyes. He quickly brushed them off. Xavier patted his back. It's all right, I get it. That sounds a lot like my story. I had no idea. Maybe if we would have met under different circumstances, we would have become friends sooner. You said you still have that badge. Can I see it? Hao nodded. He brushed with a clumsy motion over his storage ring, and the badge came forth. He handed it to Xavier. Xavier went to a lamp in the street so that he could take a closer look at the badge. It was a silver badge. On it was a black snake, with ruby eyes that bit its own tail, forming a circle. Xavier furrowed his brows. I've never seen this before. Do you have any more information? Only what Master Wu told me. He said that there were eyewitnesses of 3 men in black hooded robes escaping to the Black Zone. I'm afraid this does not help much, but that's all. Xavier nodded. There was a solemn silence between them. As Xavier broke the silence, they were approaching their living quarters. Xavier handed Hao the badge. If I ever hear about a faction that uses this badge, you'll be the first to know. Hao did not hold back his tears. He jumped into Xavier's arms, squeezing him tightly. Thank you so much, Xavier. I'm sorry I've been such an ass. You're the best friend I've ever had. Xavier's face turned red, not only because of the embarrassment, but also because he struggled to breathe. Thank you. I'm flattered, but can you please loosen your grip a bit? I'm not used to tight hugs. Hao understood and let go. Sorry, Xavier. If you ever need help, tell me. I promise I will help wherever I can. Xavier opened the door to their house and stumbled inside. Thanks, Hao. I'll do the same. We should go to sleep, though. I'm about to pass out. I should have stopped after 3 drinks. They were much stronger than I thought. Hao laughed and agreed. They climbed up to the 2nd floor and went to their rooms. Xavier sat on his bed and entered his training mode to expel some of the alcohol. As soon as his head stopped spinning, he went to bed. Xavier fell asleep quickly. It was the best night of sleep he had gotten in a long time. He slept until it was almost noon. The first thing he did as he got up was to search for Sunny. With Taro's help, Xavier found her making her way to the Q training tower. He stopped her briefly. Sunny, I'm headed to the mountains outside the inner circle. I need to train my agility D technique, and I don't want to be disturbed. Is it all right if I head off for a while? I'm not sure how long it'll take, but I won't be back for a good week or so. I did the math, and it should be fine. We have enough pills to last for a while, and our 3 alchemists produce enough pills to sell without my help. Sunny smiled. I understand. I think it should be fine if you're staying in the mountains for a few weeks. Our sales also slowed down recently. The demand is not as high as they were after the alchemy competition. People stopped talking about the alchemy competition after the fight with the Snow Princess against the Demon Hunter. Everyone is talking about that fight now instead of our competition. Maybe that's for the better. It's nice to have a bit of peace and quiet, isn't it? Anyway, I'll send someone to search for you if necessary. Xavier thanked Sunny and bid her farewell. He headed to a quiet area near the border of the inner circle and climbed out of the giant crater that formed the inner circle. Once outside, he stretched himself. A refreshing wind blew in his face, brushing his hair backward. Xavier took a deep breath of the fresh air and looked at the mountains that were not too far away. Finally, I'm alone. The laughter of an old man sounded in Xavier's mind. Don't get too excited about that, kid. You're still stuck with me, remember? Master Lao, aren't you worried about someone detecting your energy? Yes, I am. but I'm more worried about your safety than mine. I can sense some monsters nearby. They're not high ranking, but I think I'll keep an eye on it, just to be on the safe side. Thank you, Master Lao. Don't mention it, kid. Oh, and before I forget, you should look for a swamp for your training. Trust me. A swamp? Why? You'll see. Master Lao chuckled, but did not elaborate on it. Master Lao and Xavier continued to chat for a while. Once Xavier entered the vast forest of a mountain, they stopped. Xavier wanted to focus on his surroundings. If what Master Lao said was true, and Xavier had no reason to doubt him, then there could be monsters around any corner. Xavier walked and walked. After 5 hours, he reached the end of the vast forest. Behind it was a large green field. From here, it was possible to see over the inner circle of Nanji Academy. The buildings looked like small blocks in the distance. Tiny dots were running through the streets. Xavier sat down in the high grass to watch them. An hour later, he continued his journey. He remembered Master Lao's advice to look for a swamp. This was quickly proven difficult. He spent the entire day searching for a swamp. Xavier was about to give up when he finally found one. It was already noon on the second day. The swamp was in a spot between two of the majestic mountains. The area was wetter than the forest, probably because of the stream that was flowing in the middle between the mountains. Xavier checked the area out. This spot is perfect.